Hi again and welcome back. Now, during these videos I've mentioned on a couple of occasions the importance of accurate and clear conducting. Clarity was and is my mantra when conducting, as I was reminded a few weeks ago by a colleague and fellow music director who is clearly been watching these videos. And that clarity is just as important whether you're conducting your company, your band or orchestra, and of course both. But there are times when the larger gestures required when conducting a big production number, for instance, becomes useless when you have a group of singers singing in a more choral-like manner. You wouldn't need one of these, for instance. There's no need to be seen in a darkened orchestra pit or by a large number of people. In this video then, I want to concentrate on a more intimate style of directing your company and offer some tips on how I go about working with singers to create a more choral type of musical expression. Techniques used by choral directors can be very different to those used when you're in front of a large company of people. Choral conducting is both an art and a craft in itself. A great deal of the techniques used are as much about teaching the music as it is about directing the feel of the music and inspiring those in front of you to produce the sound required. But as always, and before I go any further, can I once again thank all subscribers. Please do subscribe if you haven't done so already, so you can be alerted when new videos are being uploaded, and do keep asking any questions in the comments section below or by emailing me directly at musicdirectoronline@gmail.com. The aim here is whoever is in front of you to not only help them learn the music, but also to help them express the music in their singing by leading them in a way that they too become more expressive in their vocal performance. Tip number one then, aim higher. As difficult as it can be sometimes, and especially with younger people and children, you should try and aim higher than what you think your company can achieve. If, of course, you've worked with a group for some time, you'll kind of know what they can, and you might feel you know what they cannot do. But don't let that stop you trying new things with them. That particular difficult number you have to teach may not be as difficult after all, given time. But of course, we all know there isn't always enough time. But if there is, use it wisely and apply that Chinese proverb. I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. Asking questions during rehearsals not only keeps your company alert, but also helps that learning process. Let me explain. If I just tell my company how I want a particular phrase to be sung, all I'm doing is creating parrots. Do as Rob says, for instance. But if I replace "men, you're singing too loud" with "gentlemen, was that too loud or too soft for that passage?" straight away you're getting them to think about what they have just done or what they have just done wrong. Like I say, this may work much better when dealing with young people and may get some sarcastic response from that tenor you have in the company that always knows better if you do it with adults. You know who I'm talking about. Another method of approaching the same issue is, rather than say no to how something is being sung, to replace it with nearly. And then, let's try again, but this time, blah, 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 give the instruction. No being replaced with nearly equals encouragement. Tip number 2. Melody without harmony has no context. What do I mean by that? Certainly for those members that don't read music, having a harmony line or a passage played to them that is different from the sometimes known melody isn't always easy. Although it may be easy to say that they should treat it as their own individual melody, that becomes oh so much easier if they hear a harmony structure beneath their line when teaching it in the note bashing rehearsals. Let me demonstrate. Here's a relatively straightforward example of what I'm talking about. So we could take this particular line here, starting on middle C, those oohs, that could be an alto line, and rather than teaching it as which is fine for music readers, for non-music readers it would give much more context if I was to teach it and play it as Tip number 3, make contact with your company. Look into my eyes. Look. Can you see my soul? No, but guess what? I've got your attention. Knowing your score, the music you're teaching, is vital, of course. And if you know it well enough, you won't have your head in your music, will you? Instead, you'll be looking at your group. That way, they will all feel so much more in tune, pardon the pun, with the piece you're teaching. Even go as far as walking amongst them as they sing. It not only keeps them on their toes, so to speak, but it will help with your general connection to them. It's also easy to identify, if you haven't already, the weaker ones, as usually they won't sing up as you approach. A little naughty maybe, but it certainly works. It's only through eye contact that you connect with the singers before you. Tip number 4, how to start the number or piece. Starting a number, and particularly if there is no music or no introduction, is the ideal moment to get everyone focused in what you're about to sing. You've lifted your arms to the conducting position and everyone is watching you. It is at this point where I usually like to take 3 or 4 seconds, sometimes longer, to scan across your company and make eye contact. It's like taking a moment to focus the camera before you take the picture. Call it creative silence if you wish. It not only focuses the singers, but if in a concert setting, who else can prepare for what's about to come? Yeah, those behind you, the audience. It gives the audience a moment to settle. It's during those few seconds that everyone is completely focused on the singing. The facial expression you use should be one of calm if it's a calm piece, or more animated if it's a piece with more energy. The mood of the song, the tempo, and how the first phrase should sound can all be reflected in your facial expression. This too could also be expressed by how you use your hands to conduct. You could start like this, 3, 4. You could try that, 3, 4. That is slightly more closed down. That is slightly more open. Try it. You then give a couple of beats, count in, raise your eyebrows and breathe for the company. You take an intake of breath at the same time as your company. 3, 4, and begin. Tip number 5, allow your company to sing. Now that might sound really obvious, but during rehearsals there is nothing more frustrating than when the director is constantly stopping the rehearsal to make yet another correction. Of course, you need to make such corrections, but be mindful that the company is there to sing, and you just sometimes need to let them do that and then go back and point out any amendments you'd like. So Let them sing longer phrases, and during those phrases give some notes. You can say while they're singing it, you can't hear the altos enough or the tenors are too strong. Allow the company to sing. Tip number 6, creating a blend of voices. Now, getting a good blend of voices can be quite tricky, as most of your time up until now has been spent mainly teaching and listening for the correct harmony, and this can detract you from the overall sound the company is making. Now, I could talk a lot about the placement of singers, but only if you have a concert type setup would that be of any use. And for those of you that work with companies on stage, you're invariably going to be faced with staging issues from the director or choreographer. But generally, by placing stronger singers amongst the weaker ones will help the learning and contribute to what you can do to achieve a better blend of voices. Getting voices to blend together is virtually always about getting your company to listen. More importantly, to listen to each other. Now, there's 2 or 3 exercises that I use that helps with this. Firstly, in the earlier stages of rehearsals, I like to get each voice group to stand in a circle to sing. This has 2 advantages. Firstly, it helps the weaker members hear the stronger members as they are singing towards each other, rather than when standing in line sometimes singing to the back of someone's head. And secondly, they get used to listening to each other, which is key in improving that blend. The second exercise I like to try is to give each voice section a note of a chord. Get them to listen carefully, and this is one of the keys to this exercise. Only give the note once and don't make it a major chord. Try and give it, say, a diminished chord. So you would go, for instance, okay, tenors, here's your note. The baritones, here's your note. The sopranos, here's your note. And altos. What you're listening for is that chord. Take a few seconds that I mentioned earlier and then get them to sing their note. But, and this is the most important part of the exercise, they should only sing at a volume that enables them to hear each person standing either side of them. Again, this gets your singers listening to each other. And thirdly, mix all the voices in a room. Get them to stand next to others that are not of the same voice section and repeat the exercise. This time, request a volume where they can hear all other parts, regardless of where they are standing in the rehearsal room. You'll notice virtually immediately that your singers blend as one much better. 2 other areas to listen for that will help achieving a better blend of voices. One is vibrato, and the other is what I call scooping up notes. One definition of vibrato I came across recently says that it's a slightly tremulous effect imparted to vocal or instrumental tone for added warmth and expressiveness by slight and rapid variations in pitch. Well, that is absolutely fine for solo singing. When a soloist uses that technique, I would say is largely up to them. But when used in company singing, and even more so in this choral type of singing, it just doesn't work in my opinion. Having your stronger singers thinking they are doing their solo bit amongst the company doesn't make for a pleasing sound. So always aim for a pure tone. There's also one thing that really gets my goat, and that's what I like to call that scooping up effect used in modern singing styles. It's like I'm not quite sure what the note is, so let's just reach up for it. Again, it's fine for solo singing or when singing a much more modern piece. But it's a lazy way of singing, in my opinion, and not the best technique suited for the more choral type of numbers that I've been talking about. And this is no more true than on the first note or chord of a piece. Much better to hear a pure tone when everyone is hitting that note right in the centre, right from the onset. So the next time you're starting a new piece with your company, be mindful of how you teach it by getting the members to think about how it needs correction. No being replaced with nearly equals a great deal more encouragement. When thumping out that alto line, add some harmonic context. Know the music and keep your head out of your score and look at your singers. Count a few seconds, scan all those present and use that creative silence to focus. Allow your company to sing and aim for a blend by constantly reminding your group to listen to each other. Hope that's been useful. See you next time.